how do you stop demonizing a certain food and feeling like you have to restrict it when it really is a less healthy choice that you overindulge in?
Yeah. Well, what can be really helpful here is something that we call food neutrality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moralizing food is saying this is a good food, this is a bad food. And not only that, but it extends to when I eat this, I'm a good person, and when I eat
Yeah.
this, I'm a bad person, right? I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, diet culture. Now, what if we shifted into food neutrality? What if it's all just food? Okay, we can be very factual about those foods. We can talk about nutritional information. We can even talk about our relationship with certain foods, but in a very neutral way. And instead of saying, as far as the relationship with food, if you have foods that you overconsume that are really hard for you to moderate, maybe that's not a bad food. Maybe your relationship with that food needs some work,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that actually takes the ownership on yourself rather than blaming the food for the problem. And as we say in Balance 365, when you are the problem, you also get to be the solution, which is far more empowering than blaming food, other people, the culture for your food issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking food neutrality as well. So for me, this sounds like both acknowledging that food is just food. And so even internally, as I am thinking about the food, being very mindful of how I'm describing the food.
Yeah.
Um, and thinking about the contrast to how I would describe maybe, say, a piece of fruit or some vegetables. Like, I don't worry about overindulging in carrots or apples. That's not an issue
Hmm.
for me. And there might be some reasons behind, the palatability and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But, when we think about a healthy choice, this is why this terminology is, there's a lot of nuance to the discussion, because it's like, what is healthy even? Like,
Yeah.
if I'm stranded on a desert island, I'm choosing ice cream over carrots
Yeah, you need calories.
because of the
Yes.
calorie density and the nutrient profile compared to carrots. Ice cream
Yes.
actually is the healthier choice, quote unquote. So when you start to kind of like challenge, like, why do I think this is healthy? What does healthy even mean to me? Where did I come up with that definition? Is this actually true? Like, you start to discover, like, oh, it's actually a little bit way more gray and like nuanced than I was, this has a lot of calories, therefore it's bad.
Yeah.
It's not that cut and dry, right? So I love your point of, it's not the food, it's often our relationship to the food. So
Yeah.
I would recommend just seeing if you can even start with thinking, like brainstorming, how would I describe this food in a more neutral way? Or
Hmm.
what does someone, you can use us as an example. I opened up my freezer this morning and there was a leftover McDonald's McFlurry. Is that what they're called? McFlurry?
Yeah. Yeah.
I had ordered it with my kids and forgot. I shared it with my youngest and forgotten about it. And so, what does someone like Annie, who forgets about McFlurries in her freezer, what does she think about ice cream?
Right. Yeah. So what you're saying is, you didn't frantically have to consume that McFlurry. So what's going on with you that makes that hard for other people?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to say that when I was really looking at my relationship with food, that is something I did. So I had this moment where I got out of my own situation and I zoomed out and I started thinking about all women. And there were many women my age or even a generation older than me that I had observed over my life who weren't like me, right? They weren't obsessed with being thin. They weren't doing the good food bad thing. They weren't yo-yo dieting and they weren't struggling with their weight. And I remember having this realization that the women in my life who I knew, and honestly, they were rare because most women, to be frank, are struggling with their relationship with food. They are struggling with their weight. They are struggling with this good food, bad food situation. Those rare women who weren't struggling with their weight, they also weren't struggling with their relationship with food,
Mm-hmm.
right? They ate very intuitively. They moved their bodies in ways they enjoyed. They weren't jumping from bandwagon to bandwagon to bandwagon. Their life was a lot more peaceful than mine. So if you want that, then you need to start getting curious on what are the beliefs behind that.
Yeah.
Right? I used to be a person who couldn't keep ice cream in the house. That's what I would say. I can't have it in the house or I'll eat it all. Now I have ice cream in my freezer for months. I forget about it, like you with your McFlurry. So what changed? I stopped this good food, bad food thing. I stopped the obsession. I stopped the scarcity mindset around ice cream, right? I started allowing myself to have it more regularly.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, sometimes too, I think it can be easy for people to adopt the behavior, but forget the mindset piece that complements the behavior. So for example, we hear from time to time, women say, I ate all the things. You said no food, like all foods are good food. So I'm eating all the things. And now I'm like out of control, right? Like, well, we might be missing some of the mindset component there. We've got the behavior down where you're maybe allowing yourself to eat all the foods and all the foods that you enjoy and not worrying so much about quantity or frequency as you were before. But we're still missing some of the mindsets and the beliefs that complement a balanced relationship with food. And I think when it comes to overindulging, in unhealthy foods, we can allow ourselves to eat them, but as we're eating them or shortly after, we're still filled with shame, regret, morality. And so it's not just like eating them. Allowing yourself to eat the foods is not enough. We have to pair it with the thoughts and the beliefs too, to really get that holistic change.
Yeah. I think the slogan, "It's just food," can be extremely helpful. It's just ice cream. It's just chocolate cake. It's just, insert whatever food that you are struggling with labeling as good or bad. And the other thing I want to pair this with is time. Time needs to pass. So you need to practice food neutrality, practice dialing into your thoughts and feelings and beliefs, practice changing those. And that needs to happen over time. This stuff doesn't happen overnight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.